This is Pelican Bay State Prison. It's located on 275 acres on the north coast of California, about 13 miles below the Oregon border. Pelican Bay State Prison is named for the shallow bay on the Pacific coast that sits just a few miles west of this supermax prison facility. Pelican Bay as a prison is laid out in a pretty unique way. The grounds and operations of the prison are divided between two main compounds. The sort of butterfly wing structure that you see on top there, see it's two different sort of setups. The butterfly setup that you see on top, that houses about half of Pelican Bay's 2,800 prisoners. That's the general population wing where prisoners are allowed to interact with each other and to exercise in an open-air yard. The other half of the prisoners are locked up in the X-shaped secure housing unit that you see there at the bottom. Everybody housed in that part of the prison, everybody there is in solitary confinement, locked into 11 by 7 foot cells for 22 hours a day. Prisoners held there are allowed solitary, very limited exercise in a cement yard that's known as the dog run, but these guys are alone. That X-shaped secure housing unit at Pelican Bay is one of 5 secure housing units in the state of California. Secure housing unit in the acronym is SHU, so they're called SHUs. Most prisoners in the SHUs are in long-term isolation. At Pelican Bay, most of the prisoners in solitary confinement have been there for at least 5 years. And it was from that unit at Pelican Bay that last month a group of prisoners in solitary confinement put out a statement announcing that they would be going on an indefinite hunger strike. And yesterday, the day of that planned hunger strike, prisoners from Pelican Bay were among 30,000 California prisoners who refused meals at the majority of the state's prisons. 30,000 people. Yesterday was the first day in what the prisoners say will be an ongoing protest against long-term solitary confinement in that state. So that was yesterday in California. 30,000 prisoners starting a coordinated hunger strike that they say will go on indefinitely. Also, yesterday, at around the same time, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. made a ruling on a hunger strike of a different kind, a hunger strike that is now going into its 6th straight month. Since February, over 100 prisoners being held at Guantanamo have been refusing meals in order to protest their ongoing open-ended detention. In response to that hunger strike, the military has decided to forcibly stop them from hunger striking. Half of the prisoners on hunger strike at Guantanamo are now being force-fed by U.S. Navy doctors and nurses at the facility. And yesterday, it was a federal district court judge who ruled against those prisoners. The prisoners had asked the court to intervene to stop the forced feedings. And Judge Gladys Kessler did not rule that the force feeding itself was legal or illegal. Instead, she found that her federal court lacked any legal jurisdiction to get involved. Any legal jurisdiction at all to end that force-feeding program at Guantanamo. She wrote, quote, "No court, justice, or judge shall have jurisdiction to hear or consider any aspect of the detention, transfer, treatment, trial, or conditions of confinement of an alien who has been determined to have been properly detained as an enemy combatant." So, in other words, federal courts are constrained by a lack of jurisdiction to rule on whether or not these prisoners should be forced to undergo a procedure that the judge calls a painful, humiliating, and degrading process. A degrading process, deemed degrading not only by this judge, but also, as she points out in her ruling, by the medical profession. Specifically the AMA, the American Medical Association, the largest group of doctors and medical students in the country. They say that force feeding is in direct violation of the core ethical values of the medical profession. They say doctors shouldn't participate in it. Essentially, the largest association of doctors in the country says that it is not possible for a doctor to act ethically as a doctor if you are also administering force feeding at the direction of the government. Another letter was sent to President Obama by a group of over 150 doctors arguing that these military doctors at Guantanamo Bay are being put into a serious conflict of interest, essentially, with these orders to force feed the hunger strikers. They were asking that the prisoners receive independent medical assistance from medical professionals who do not have to take orders. For these medical professionals, what is happening at Guantanamo Bay twice a day, the force feeding of prisoners protesting their own detention, it runs counter to the ethics inherent to the medical profession. As this hunger strike continues, that sort of pressure from the medical profession continues to build along with it. And while the federal court ruling yesterday could not stop the force feeding from going forward, it very overtly acknowledged this growing worry and criticism from the medical community. This judge also, in this very short 4-page ruling, also did something very, very blunt. She put this whole issue into the lap of the one person who she says can act to change what is happening there. And announcing that her court essentially has no standing to rule on this case, this federal judge closed her ruling with this. She says even though this court is obligated to dismiss the application for lack of jurisdiction and therefore lacks any authority to rule in the petitioner's request, there is an individual who does have the authority to address the issue. The President of the United States, as Commander-in-Chief, has the authority and power to directly address the issue of force feeding of the prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. In other words, President Obama, the ball is now in your court. What happens next here?